I think when we can recognize and not compare ourselves in terms of what this person has versus what I don't have, and recognize just the daily miracles that exist in life, that to me, I think is incredible.
Hi, and welcome to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman. My interview this week is with Dr. Jose Valentino, an absolutely fascinating man, tons of energy. I can't believe how much stuff he's done. You are going to love this interview. It's incredibly uplifting, inspiring, educational, and so many other things. But first, let me tell you, if you've always wanted to play bass, but never quite got around to it or never got very far with it for one reason or another, you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the For Bass Players Only community. A lot of them in their 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s, men and women. And you know what they're doing? They're learning bass. They're having the time of their life playing music that they love. You should definitely come join them and experience that incredible transformation for yourself. You're never too old to groove. So let's play bass. Let me tell you about Dr. Valentino. He is a multi-Grammy Award winner, 10-time Global Genius Award winner, and 55-time Downbeat Music Award winner who has built an incredible career as an internationally touring cross-genre multi-instrumentalist on the flute, saxophone, and of course, the bass. He has collaborated in various capacities with the likes of Chick Corea, Paquito de Rivera, Alex Acuna, Brian Bromberg, Victor Wooten, Aaron Neville, Dave Weckl, Abe Laboriel Sr., and countless others. Dr. Valentino also holds pivotal roles as founder and CEO at JV Music Enterprises, Global Director of Entrepreneurial Initiatives at the Global Institute for Music Research, and he's the founder and program director of the University of Florida's Music Business and Entrepreneurship Program. Here's my interview with Dr. Jose Valentino. You're gonna love it. Hello, Jose. Welcome back to For Bass Players Only. It's good to see you again.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. This is a delight and an immense honor.
I was looking at the other interview we did. That was in 2016. Can you believe that?
I was a different person back then, fresh out of doctoral school, still trying to figure out who I am and what I want to pursue. So,
yeah, how's that working out? You figuring it out?
Yeah, the answer is yes, ma'am, to the wife.
Smart man. That was actually a text interview. I think we did a phone interview and then we recorded it and had it transcribed, but now we're in the age of Zoom. So
Yeah.
we get to see you and actually talk and all of that stuff. So tell me, I know you've got some major new things to talk about, but I want to ask you specifically about, there was a record that I used to play to death back in the late 70s, maybe early 80s, with a Claude Bolling suite, flute and jazz piano. It was Jean-Pierre Rampal on flute and Claude Bolling on piano, and there was a bass player and a drummer. And I probably know it by heart. I still listen to it a lot. It's he had a lot of others. He had with guitar with Andres Segovia, he had violin with Pinchas Zuckerman, and he had one called Toot Suite, which was a trumpet thing. Yep. And he had one cello with Yo-Yo Ma. And did I say that already? I don't know. But you have a very different take on that. So why don't we start there? I know we've got a lot of things that we want to talk about, but I thought that'd be a good one to kick it off. Tell me about the project.
Absolutely. Listen, the visionary and producer behind this is a dear friend of mine, a University of Miami graduate, three-time graduate, Carlo Magno Araya. Who's a drummer, recording engineer, and arranger, producer from Costa Rica. And he grew up with Claude Bolling, and he loves the flute suite. But while he was listening to it back when he was a kid, he always reimagined it with very distinctive Latin rhythms from Brazil, Venezuela, and Cuba. as well as some rhythms from Peru. These are maybe the lesser known lesser commercialized genres in Latin popular music, but we crossed paths at the University of Miami as well as in the industry with mutual friends, and we've always maintained communication, and he was always putting the bug in my ear. I have this dream that one day we're going to do it. Well, think about it, almost 9 or 10 years passed by, and he says, this is the year, I have to do it this year. I said, okay, cool. So at the beginning of 2024, we really discussed it, and he recorded the project, and he used his gifted student, where he's a professor at the University of Costa Rica, Eduardo Montero, to be the pianist. And then he got one of his best friends, who was also University of Miami bass grad, Jamie Ousley, who teaches jazz bass and commercial music at Florida International University. And he did the percussion and drums along with his other brother, Ramses, who also did percussion. And we got special guests here and there, but the main instrument is flute. And he said, I need somebody who has that rhythmic and harmonic understanding, that depth of a bass player, but can also, toot some notes on the flute in the way that, that I can do. So he thought it was a really good fit, because I do have a really strong awareness for rhythm and groove. And basically around April, we recorded it. April, we recorded it. May, we released it. And the rest is history. I mean, it won the Gold Medal Award of Excellence for the Global Music Awards over the summer, and it ended up getting nominated for the Latin Grammy for Best Instrumental Album of the Year. And now we are planning a tour. It's funny. It's kind of like very similar to what Jaco said in an interview where the interviewer said, you've accomplished all this and you're regarded as one of the main innovators of this instrument. What's next for you? He said, maybe I could get a gig. And so his close friend, Alex Acuna, who I've made another album with, where I recorded bass called Rompiendo Fronteras. He and we have good relationships. So I get to learn a lot about Jaco on a personal level just from the conversations from him. And he ended up getting a Lifetime Achievement Latin Grammy Award and all that stuff. And I asked him, I said, so what's next? And he said, maybe I could get a gig. That's so funny. In that spirit, it's almost like these days, everything is reversed. We need to win these little trophies and things like that just to be able to get noticed. So we're excited for the Claude Bolling tour.
Well, you should be. That's great. And I went to school with Alex Acuna's nephew, Hector Neciosa.
Oh, yeah.
Great percussionist.
Yes.
And I was there in the 80s. I was there from 84 to 90. So I got to hang out with Jaco and go to his house and jam with him in his living room and ask him fingerings for Teen Town and talk to him. And oh man, it was it was
what
amazing.
An era.
Yeah, incredible era. Well, I know this site is ForBassPlayersOnly.com. So listening very carefully to everything you just said, reading between the lines, I guess it's fair to conclude that as accomplished of a flute player you are, you wouldn't be as good a flute player, particularly for this project, had you not also been a bass player. Did I interpret that correctly, or is that?
Absolutely. When we did our interview back in 2016, I was an assistant professor of music business and also in charge of the bass studio as well. So what happened is that my father plays bass, and so he exposed me to all these musicians, and he was my first manager and also musical director for local gig ensembles across Tampa Bay, and then eventually the Florida region. And we branched out to different smooth jazz type of festivals where we did kind of like Latin jazz and smooth jazz music. So yeah, growing up listening to him and listening to his heroes, for me, bass is the coolest instrument on the planet. It's the most important instrument. And I'm actually the bass player on a lot of my albums and albums that I produce for other people as well. So it's not just for this project. I mean, really, the bass is the cornerstone. I think Michael Brecker said it in an interview, recorded masterclass that's on YouTube, I think maybe back in the early 80s, where he said every horn player needs to pick up a rhythm section instrument. And then he got on the drum set and absolutely slayed it. And so that was the real impetus. I was dabbling a little bit on bass because I wanted to be like my dad. But when I saw that Michael Brecker was doing that, I said, wait a minute, I need to get more serious about this. There's something to it. So, and it's offered me a lot of opportunity because, you know, when you can interact and communicate intentions, you know, things that you want with a bass player, it makes the whole band better. And actually, you know who my bass player is for my band in Florida. It's Elias Tona.
Oh, I've interviewed him a couple times. Oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
great
he, you know,
player.
he does the stuff with Aldi Meola, but yeah, I mean he's my first call bass player for many of my gigs. So, you know.
I think the last time I saw him was with Al, with Gumby Ortiz.
Oh yeah, of course we've gigged many times together. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Another personality and virtuoso and just a great guy.
yeah, and Al was my hero because I played guitar for a long time before I played bass, and I have another set called for guitarplayersonly.com, and I
Oh wow.
had to do a one-on-one interview with him. And it's funny because it can be kind of risky because people always say, don't meet your heroes because a lot of times you can
Yeah.
be disappointed. There was a Major League Baseball player I idolized when I was a kid, and I met him at a luncheon somewhere, and he was like, and there was out of all the bass players and all the guitar players I've interviewed, there was only one, and I won't say who it was, but I wish I didn't admire this person's music as much as I did because it
Yeah.
was a real turnoff. Even if people at first don't feel like being interviewed, you get people to talk about themselves, and they get more animated, they get excited. Not this person. How did we get off on this? Oh, Al was a great guy and very friendly and did not disappoint. Let's talk about what else is keeping you busy these days, particularly things that might be bass centric or bass oriented.
Yeah, I've released a number of different bass albums. There's one called Cuerdas de Corazón, which I did in homage to one of the people that really imparted a lot of wisdom on just developing real expressivity and from an emotional level, like where I can play the bass in a way that conveys a sentiment of nostalgia and crying. And
Doors to
uh,
the heart.
strings. Strings.
Puertas. Oh,
Yeah,
cuerdas.
cuerdas.
Cuerdas. I thought you said puertas.
No, yeah, yeah. Hey, that also is a good title right there.
There you go.
So
You can have that.
yeah, yeah. So Cuerdas de Corazón, homage to Arturo Bermudez. So incredible bass player.
Your
Um, uh,
Spanish accent is right on.
oh, thank you, thank you.
You could pass for a genuine Latino.
And I have Sephardic Jew heritage, by the way. So
Really.
yeah, yeah. So but it has been a lot of fun getting into those roots as well. Um, so and anyways, Arturo Bermudez, he passed away unfortunately, but he contributed to a lot of records in the Latin pop world, albums and art for artists that are too many to list, but Luis Fonsi, Tani Garcia, Don Omar, Victor Manuel, these are legends of urban and also salsa music, and many more. Where, but he's a guy who really preferred to be a hillbilly from Puerto Rico. So it's like it was kind of interesting. It's like he managed to maintain a really high profile bass career while not needing to engage in the self-marketing and promotion that so many people, including what I have to teach, at the University of Florida, like he didn't have to do any of that. And it's like I would consider him, at least in the island of Puerto Rico, one of the very last that can really get the best of both worlds. I mean, his cell phone didn't work half the time. He didn't engage in email, but you would have to contact this person to see at what point they might cross paths at the supermarket, and then maybe let him know that, hey, there's a friend of a friend of a friend who's trying to get a hold of you. And then eventually he got a cell phone and we maintained communication. But the album is dedicated to him. And so couple beautiful testimonies about that is that is an album. Hold on one second. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, cool. I forgot to lock my door. So, um, that was an album that features a number of original music, and yeah, sure, there's all these really cool techniques inspired by my heroes, Brian Bromberg, John Patatuchi, and all these great people, but it wasn't intended to be like, hey, let's showcase, bass monstrosity. It was more of, let's honor the death. I mean, let's pay real homage, a eulogy for this person and what he meant to me. Even when I saw that Michael Brecker video, realized I needed to take it seriously. At that time, I was, playing the flute and the saxophone, but I was hiring this bass player and a pianist from Puerto Rico because we just absolutely loved their playing. So they would come to Florida and play in all these things. And so he really imparted a lot of wisdom. He introduced me to a lot of other bass players that you've interviewed as well, including Brian Bromberg. So he really meant a lot to me. I got deeper into studying and learning about John Patatucci's music from Arturo. So what was really beautiful is that when I released the album, John actually called me and he said, man, this album is really, really soulful. It was so beautiful. And he was, I think he was a bit familiar with Arturo's playing because there was a time in 2018, which is the last time I got to see him before he got really sick with his cancer. We were recording something in the summer at my cousin's house, and Arturo has never met John. And John at this time was playing with Chick and Dave in Hungary. There's a video, I think, of 2018 where they're playing in Hungary. And I knew about that upcoming concert. Well, guess, I wrote a text message. I said, if you receive this, there's a bass player who really admires you and he's incredible, but he has studied you all his life. John called. And they started having a conversation. One's in English, the other one's in Spanish. John speaking a little bit of Spanish. I'm translating for Arturo. It's so beautiful. So, John got to hear when I sent him this album, this homage, and those were beautiful words. And
Tell me again the title of the album.
Guardas de Corazón. It ended up winning the
right.
Outstanding Achievement Award for Instrumental Album at the Global Music Awards as well. So it was really, really nice. And I've used a lot of that music, especially when I do workshops. Oftentimes people will call me, maybe not necessarily for bass or for flute or for an instrument, but I'll get workshops for like my discipline as a professor, teaching entrepreneurship, business, but I get to express and also convey the importance of, before we get into the whole marketing and strategizing and monetizing and all that stuff, you still need to have a meaningful product and service that has foundations in a mission to address the needs of people, like rather than trying to create a product solely for treating people as a transaction. And so, there comes a time, and
incredibly important what you just said.
Yeah. So lessons that I've learned from so many other greats, but so anytime I do a workshop, it's sort of noted, like when Jose Valentino gets called to play here or there, I always bring my bass and my flute. If I can't get away with it, I'll take my mouthpiece and say, can you rent a saxophone? Because now it becomes too much of a load. But yeah, so
that's beautiful. Yeah, you bring back some good memories too from my Miami years. I met Brian Bromberg in Miami. He was playing with Monty Alexander.
Oh, wow.
And was it Bobby Thomas, I think, also on Congas? I think he was, yeah. And that was 1984. And we used to be a jazz club called Arthur's Eating House. Somewhere
that's incredible.
Downtown. And Patatucci, you mentioned Patatucci and Michael Brecker. John Patatucci was a huge Michael Brecker fan.
Yeah, well, I think they were pretty much best friends. I mean, Michael was present at the hospital when John's first daughter was born.
Oh, I didn't know that, because I remember John was very excited that Michael played on his first album. He was on Four Tunes. That album went #1. It was way before your time. It was like, I don't know, 1988 or something like that.
Yeah.
Because the six string, but the Anthony Jackson and John Patatucci, those were like the two main guys that played six string bass.
Yeah. Well, Anthony Jackson commissioned it with Ken Smith.
Yeah.
My understanding. And
okay, we're gonna geek out on bass stuff.
Oh yeah, we can. I'm a bass player. There's a concerto that was that has been making headlines in the academic world. It's called Found Connections, and it's the very first concerto written for the Wind Symphony, which is the fancy word for wind ensemble now.
Yeah.
But it was written by the chair of composition, Ricardo Lorenz. First movement was flute, second was tenor sax, third movement was bass guitar. It was written for me, so it was a massive honor. I'll share that link with you. Maybe in this platform, I'll send some resources so that people can check it out. But it's like the first of its kind, at this point, the only of its kind, because I'm going toot toot toot, voo voo voo, and then I said I'm going on the bass part. It was so much music. And it was all this tapping and things like that, and just like it was so much fun. Then the cadenza of all things, I actually said, "Could I please do it on flute?" Because like there's so many incredible bass players that do incredible stuff. I don't want this to be public. And he's like, "No, you have something to say," and that was a really beautiful moment.
The whole cadenza was written out?
No. I improvised it all. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But it also ended up winning the gold medal Global Music Award, which they only give it to 9 people. And it's now published in the latest issue of the College Music Symposium, which is the College Music Society. It's a massive thing. So it's interesting because we were talking about like our first interview in 2016 and where we are now at the end of 2024. What I have uncovered and what I've been advocating and trying to be a representative model, but instilling in others is that, when you have such extraordinary musicianship from these legends that have made such a platform, it's almost like at first, in 2016, I was wondering like, what else is there to say? And then it's not so much about what to say, but hey, we can take this message from this artist, this message from this artist, whether it's an artistic message or a philosophical message that they are representing, conveying through their interviews, and just further translating it. So almost like being disciples, but transmitting the essence and being a beacon of hope, of love, of faith in these communities that may not know who these artists are. And so the academic world has been a really fascinating place to be able to introduce the world of bass players, because a lot of bass players are super philosophical and, kind of deep in nature, I find. At least the good ones, So,
Interesting.
yeah.
What exactly is your doctorate in?
Yeah, so I have a PhD in music education.
Okay. From which school? From Miami?
University of South Florida.
South Florida.
Yeah.
Well, you went to a lot of great Florida universities.
Hey, absolutely. Yeah, and then I also have a doctor of ministry in global outreach and missiology. So I did a lot of mission work, and that's another example where that's a completely different vibe. But you imagine where I'm partnering up with religious organizations as well as just humanitarian organizations, and they said, "Listen, we're going to be doing medical missions, or we're going to be doing, a mission focused on establishing water filters or building homes, but we also want to invigorate the human spirit of the people who are hosting us and just give them joy." So I would do these concerts and I would bring my bass, I would bring my flute to bring some variety, and so, yeah, it's like the bigger mission here of what I'm teaching at the University of Florida and wherever I get across is that, listen, be open to opportunities as opposed to like thinking that opportunities to make a career or to express your calling is limited to the ways that it has been expressed before, because society is changing and continues to change. But I think for me, if we can have a missiological impetus in the work that we do, more people will create access and opportunity for you to express your voice in lesser known spaces. So
you are a fascinating man.
I'm sorry.
Are you one of those people who only needs like 3 or 4 hours of sleep at night?
Yeah, I'm not Elon Musk. Okay. So,
I'm thinking like Oprah,
oh,
sleep a half hour a night or, whatever. You have so much energy and you've done so much. You're so driven and all these worthwhile causes. I think it's beautiful. So I want to ask you, this would be the perfect opportunity to try to pick your brain a little bit. For Bass Players Only is really a bass instruction site. And I've got people from pretty much every state in the US now, and I don't know, last time anybody counted 50, 60, 70 countries worldwide. I don't know the number. But most of those people are people who've always wanted to learn to play an instrument, but they never really got very far with it. Many of them, most of them are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I've got students in their 80s, men and women.
Wow.
And they're not trying to be rock stars. They don't want to go, they don't aspire to tour the world playing sold out arenas to their adoring fans. They want to play some classic rock riffs with their buddies. They want to play some blues shuffles. They want to play some walking bass or whatever it is they like. Actually, most of them tend to really love the classic rock and blues music from the 60s and 70s, which was pretty much the best era for music, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you all this to give you a context, because also, sometimes when people get into their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, yeah, arthritis, maybe tendonitis, some of them are recovering from surgery, things like that. And again, just to give you context, not that I'm running a award for infirm people, but I want to ask you what advice you could impart to somebody like that. What do you think they should be thinking about? What kind of goals should they have? What should they be aspiring to do? I just want to get your take. Jump in anywhere. What do you think they should be working on?
Yeah, I think what they should be working on and just really seize the opportunity is fueled upon this quote. Two things. The first quote is relationships are the currency of the kingdom. It's a beautiful quote, very philosophical, but it's okay. I'm a PhD, so entertain me. I'm a little nerdy in that regard. And what I mean by that is that quote, relationships are the currency of the kingdom. I think you said it. They're not necessarily looking for a career or, engage in that kind of competitive spirit or advancing the field. So oftentimes these types of individuals, they're much about the community and wanting to play an instrument to discover who they are, their limitations, their strengths, and also cognitively translate like their whole life experiences and emotions into musical meaning when they're playing. And they're also trying to jam with friends. What I would say is even there, you have something to say. And oftentimes we can seclude ourselves, that these types of individuals can seclude themselves to, I'm just going to hang out with my friends and do my thing and learn and just have fun. I still think there's an opportunity and there's something meaningful to say, hey, I'm going to branch out. And I'm going to share people what I have learned, even to a younger generation, and to be able to share the wisdom that they have garnered into a younger generation, I think is very important. I think there's a generation now that are really hungry to have conversations with more seasoned individuals. I love talking to people who have lived more life than me. And the second quote that I think that I would use as an advice is, be ruined for the ordinary and obsessed with the pursuit of wonder.
Say that again.
Yeah. Be ruined for the ordinary and obsessed with the pursuit of wonder. Be ruined for the ordinary. What this means is don't function in the ordinary, but also don't perceive that your daily life, the opportunity to drink a nice cup of coffee, to say hi to a loved one, to look at the beauty of craftsmanship of a bass instrument. I'm looking at 4 basses right now next to me, and the time that was taken and just all that investment, even how the bass changes and morphs into a color, into a shade, into a texture that reflects the sweat and all that stuff that has gone into just being able to express who you are in that moment. So recognizing that that your life is extraordinary and not ordinary. I think it's very easy to look at the life of what's being advertised, be it the legends that we love, from back in the day or even now, but I think when we can recognize and not compare ourselves in terms of what this person has versus what I don't have, and recognize just the daily miracles that exist in life, that to me, I think is incredible. And the second part is be obsessed with the pursuit of wonder. And I think, like right now, I can see behind the computer screen, beautiful greens, nice cut grass. I see the shade, I see the sun, I see a lot of different things just from here. Like
Well,
outside.
you're in Florida. That's not fair. I'm in
Yeah.
Michigan. I see snow.
Well,
Point taken. Go on.
yeah, exactly. Like recognize that you have a one of a kind of a opportunity to freeze like nobody else can. Ding. But I think in essence, it's just like I tell people that I come across with, like even right now, I'll tell you, to me, this is the greatest moment of my career. And then the next thing is going to be the most incredible moment. So I'm not somebody that dwells in the fact that I have done really cool stuff and then just want to talk about that. I want to be able to share stories about people that I've come across with and what I've learned, whether things that they have said or maybe even their demeanor and things that I've learned from and take away. So for sure, I'm going to share people. I've already been talking, man, I get to talk to, I'm doing an interview for Bass Players Only, and there's people that know you and that respect you because of who you are and just even your whole demeanor. I have percussionists that know exactly who you are, that you don't even know who they are. They're the local musicians, but because percussionists and drummers, they also vibe with bass players. And like, they said, "Oh, is that the Liebman guy, John? Yeah." I said, "Yeah, that's John Liebman." So it's just like be obsessed with the pursuit of wonder and not real, not. That's just a fancy way of saying like don't be this rough McGruff all the time. Don't be an Eeyore, right, from the Winnie the Pooh all the time. So that's my advice. My two advices for just those that want to jam and not necessarily try to pursue a massive career representing the bass.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad we are recording this, right? Yes. Okay. God, I would hate to not have all that. I love both. I love what a deep thinker you are. I do want to comment on your first quote, and I just want to give you a little twist because I said they want to get together with their buddies and jam. It surprised me at first to learn that a, a lot of people are very happy to just sit in a room all by themselves and practice, maybe play along with recordings or maybe just work on their scales or their grooves or something like that. And I found it odd at first, but then I thought, you know what? I do that a lot. I like it. I practice whether it's the
Yeah.
upright or it's the electric. And I thought that was a point or a comment worth mentioning and adding to what we're talking about
Oh
here.
yeah, absolutely. Especially, as a married individual, I would say, there are a few spaces where you can really feel like even in your home these days when you have kids at a young age where you can just have your me time and just enjoy. Like not everything has to serve a mission. We can also enjoy the gift. So I love that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, I want to ask you another question here, and I don't know how long the answer is going to be, but
I'll be short if you want.
oh no, I didn't mean that in a negative way. I meant that actually in a roundabout inspiring way. I was just going to ask you, what about the future? What else would you like to do that you haven't already done? Or is there something that's currently in the works? Or is there something that someday I'm gonna, any or all of the above?
Sure.
And the reason I
Yeah.
said what I said is because you've got so much energy and you're always doing a million things and you do them, you don't do them half-assed, man. You do
Oh
them
man,
big.
I
So what's coming
appreciate
up?
that. Yeah, these days I am okay. So a lot of my music is the kind of music that is largely inspired by, funk fusion and straight ahead jazz and all this global music that has it for us is so fulfilling. And we can nerd out about, but I still realize that there's a larger audience that can appreciate this music. Oftentimes I notice that concert goers, uh, whether it's me or other individuals that kind of deal with my genres, they'll go because they're still intrigued and still trying to find why they like about it. But what I'm noticing is that I can connect more with individuals if I can reach, I don't want to say level because it's not about levels, but I just want to be able to relate with the audience more in a way that doesn't sell out, by the way. Like I just to maintain honesty in what we're playing. Listen, I think to answer your question right up front, we are living in the future. It's right? I mean, we're living in this AI technology. In Instagram, you have so many people that are just collaborating and doing incredible things on a virtuosic level that it's quite unprecedented. That it's like, do I need to do that, right? And at the end of the day, I know that, and I talk a lot about this with Elias Tona too. It's like, I've even told Elias, hop on this, get involved in this, show him what you got, because I mean, he's another monster musician, and he really appreciates being a service unto others, and I love that. And in that regard, a lot of my platform, I think, because I started out as a flute player and then took the bass, added it as one of my axes on a serious level, I oftentimes get more of the front man still. So what I want to do is I want to, remain as a front man, but involve more singers in my bands. So that I'm a front man more in a MD capacity, leadership capacity, or in the transitioning between one song and another song. In a concert, I can throw some comedy or perspective, but then like really let singers and other artists and even students shine and get that professional experience, but just to get the opportunity to connect with people. So it's not so much about like portfolio building, but like, hey, there's this thing called human interaction, and response, and that they're going to respond to your sax solo. And like, so where I can make the show less about me. And I think, Chick Corea was really good at that. And still, he always managed to shine incredible. So I think even when I talk to colleagues and mentors and heroes of mine who played with Chick, they always talk about less about his unfathomable genius and virtuosity and more about the access and opportunity that he gave people. And so I want to give myself an opportunity to play more bass in a service role, but not in the I'm behind and nobody knows who I am. There are people who are really good at that. I want to still make it cool and because I like to dance, I like to move, I like to express my body language, and I really what it is that I love what horn players and singers, what they do, and I want to see it up close. So I just don't want to be as positioned like far away. So it's not about the light, it's just more about like I want to get right there close to the melody and show people at the same time the ways that the bass can interact, because oftentimes it's like we musicians understand the significance of a bass player in the context of a commercial music ensemble, but I want to also, that educator spirit in me, just show people like, hey, these are 4 strings, look what's going on that's making that music happen, even if it means that I'm palm muting and then just dropping a little Ain't No Sunshine, boom, boom, boom. And then let the singer sway away. But like when I do a line, show people this is that line without having to tell them, but just show them. And I think it's really educational. What comes across a lot, and that's inspiring me to do this more often in the future, is that people are also saying, wow, I didn't know you play guitar like that. It's like, yeah, it's a guitar, but it's a bass guitar. Like, so I'm realizing that audiences still need basic education, pun intended, for what the instrument is and how it serves, to advance the music and create this emotional connection with the music and with the people. And, so the future for me is bright in the sense that I want to create access and opportunity for singers and horn players, and be less about, the virtuosic side of things, because that stuff can get old too. And, there's only so many audiences that can really even understand that kind of thing,
Yeah.
So that's for me, what I want to do in the future.
I think your students are very lucky to have you as their professor. I'd like to be in one of your classes. I've been playing bass for just a few months short of, I can't believe what I'm about to say, 50 years. And
Wow.
you inspire me greatly.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, maybe something that there should be like a 50th anniversary of For Bass Players Only, like a collective, maybe an
Well,
album.
I haven't been running for bass players only for 50 years.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But a few years ago we had our 13th anniversary. I thought, hey, why don't I have a bass mitzvah?
Hey, that would be really cool.
Yeah, and then I thought, you know what? I had such a grand scheme of, it's going to get all these people and get my parents and, but I just thought, you know what, for the time and the energy and the effort and all that stuff, yeah, there's other things that are probably more important, but I just thought I'd share them.
No, that's really great. That on a musical level, I will tell you this. I mean, I have been really more interested. I find myself it's not so much about scales, but there's a certain point where it is. But I'm loving learning the kind of scales and also the little nuances of how to approach the bending and the kind of vibrato of musics that come from the Middle East and India as well. I play in a flamenco group called Maharaja Flamenco Trio, and they have their own band, but now they have what is called the Maharaja Rumba Collective. And Maharaja in India means kings, and the origin of flamenco music originated in India, and it's the migration of gypsies from India, and then
I
they
didn't know. I always think of
oh
it as
man,
the Spain, just
Spain.
as,
Yeah, no, it's not. It started there, and then it went to the Middle East. It also went to Israel and gathered a lot of stuff. And so, like last year, I went to Spain and I did a whole tour, and gave some master classes and some performances, and so I went with the leader of the Maharaja Flamenco Trio, who's this really amazing flamenco guitarist named Dr. Sylvia Chule. And he's actually happens to be a professor at the University of Florida. That was the initial connection, but you have snagged another phenom of a guitar player. Anyways, we went to the caves where he grew up and lived and learned flamenco from the gypsies there in the caves, which was fascinating. And so we
can't
went
get
there.
more authentic than that.
You cannot get it was Sacromonte in Granada, Spain. I mean, and we drove the beautiful land, and we just listened to so much flamenco and just immersed that. I mean, it's that kind of exposure that that you it's more than just hearing and witnessing. It's like you can taste it, you can feel it. You lived it, you eat the food that they eat, they feed you, and it's just so beautiful. And so a lot of my playing, even when I'm playing flute or bass, like there are lines that there are melodic or just let's call it language, for lack of a better word. There's language that one would play, let's say in the context of rumba, which can come from Cuba, Afro-Cuba, where it's very, when I play, it is really that language. But I find all these little nuances from flamenco, which is informed by the Middle East and also India as well, and the Mediterranean, now interfacing and changing my language, which is so cool. Because I could play a mambo, which, mambo, Tito Puente, coming from New York, bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 ba-dum, bum. But, maybe I'll play a solo. Okay, that's very Cachao, Israel Cachao Lopez kind of vibe, but now I'm finding little nuances, right? And it's like, wow, it still works, but it's a beautiful color. If I do it all the time, then it just sounds like I'm not understanding the conversation. But if I fuse it in moments where when it shows people and even musicians and listeners, it's like, wow, this person is informed. This person is maybe cultured, is expanding. And I think going back to your previous question, that is the future for me, is discovering ways in which I can blur the lines of what a genre is and just try to connect and inspire others to do that, through my advocacy, through my writing, through my compositions, which has led to this kind of genre blurring mission of mine. I mentioned one album. I'll just briefly name others for people to check out. There's an album I did called Sound. And I did that on a Fender Precision. And I don't have a Fender Precision. I didn't grow up with that, but my friend had it. And I said, let me discover this and see if I can establish a voice and compositions that resonate. So I did multi-tracking on the Fender Precision. It's a very different vibe than what you would normally hear on the instruments that I'm an endorser for. but it's beautiful, and the image of the cover is of a sound, which it's also a body of water, specific body of water that
Oh,
deflects to land. So it's a
oh,
play
that kind
on
of sound.
yeah, so it's that kind of peaceful vibe of an album. My latest album, even after Claude Bolling goes Latin, is called Bajista, which is Latin for bajista. So I have two pieces inspired by my trips to Spain, in which they are improvisations, but more of in a flamenco vibe on the acoustic bass guitar by Faith Guitars in the UK. So it's an acoustic bass guitar, 4-string, really beautiful, and reverberation and just like all this beautiful stuff. But I also started exploring more on my Win guitars, my WY. I'm an artist for them. So they at the NAMM show,
That's what Abe Laboriel plays, isn't it?
exactly. So yeah, I'm an artist for them, and that's where I met Abe. We both were joined by Randy, who is the founder of that company. It's named after him. And he connected me with Abe, and we have some videos on YouTube with Abe and I playing together
Oh, I'll have to
as
check
well.
those out.
Yeah,
What other instruments do you endorse or gear or
yeah. So
any?
I play the Win fretless 5-string fretless bass. Beautiful African wood. I'll give you this information. Maybe we can include it in the website. There's a Korean company called Tune Guitars, Tune Bass
Yeah.
Guitars. And I play their maple professional 4-string bass. I also have the Faith guitars as well. I still play Black Diamond strings. That was the connection. The former president was the one who connected us. So
Uh, Campbell, no, I forgot his name.
I forgot his name too.
Well, I hope he's not watching.
I know.
It's a family business.
Yeah, it's a family. I know if it's but he was incredible with me always. Um uh Now we got to figure out his name.
Okay, you keep talking and with no interruption here.
Yeah. So Black Diamond strings, and of course there's all these incredible instruments, right? I was a Yamaha young performing artist.
Excuse me, Jim Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh, that's right. Yeah. I always know the Kavanaugh company. That's right. So hey
They
Jim,
sold the company though, didn't they?
he sold the company. Yeah, but I still play those Black Diamond strings. And so, between Win, Tune, Faith for the acoustic bass guitar, and believe it or not, I play the cheapest Yamaha 4-string that you can actually buy. But I did that intentionally because when I was a bass professor at Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee, I wanted to make a point to the students that it wasn't about the equipment, but at first, can you be as expressive as possible with cheap gear? And so what the problem is like I started falling in love with, you develop a connection with it and you understand its weaknesses, and all of a sudden you got a real legitimate voice. So I have a bass album called Keys to the Groove with a multi-Grammy award-winning pianist, Latin jazz pianist named Lenny Battistini. The whole album is piano and bass. And I'm playing that $200 Yamaha bass, but man, it can sound. I'm convinced. I told Elias, I said, I think somebody souped it up, at least, the pickups, and just didn't tell anybody. And I just lucked out because, man, it sounds crispy. Yeah, that's the gear that I'm using.
What about amps and you play upright bass too, right? So you must have a pickup or no?
Yeah. I don't have an upright bass anymore, so maybe I have to update that bio.
Okay.
But I earlier in April I did record upright, and I posted a little video clip and people said, "Wow, you play?" And I'm like, let's not call it that.
Okay.
I didn't promote it that way. I used to though. What happens is that my dad, being a connoisseur for bass and a former bass player, nurse by day, bass player in the weekends, right? So he retired now, but he got into making baby basses. So
I was waiting for the words baby bass.
Okay,
I was
there
going
you
to
go.
say it. I thought, no, I'm going to let him say it first.
Yeah. So yes, baby bass. I will say is more up my alley these days.
I love them.
I have a baby bass. So my dad said, I want to make a bass for you. So when I pass, you have something to remember me by. And it's just like, my God, like, Dad, can you be any more epic? Cue the music. And he crafted it. He asked me, I want you to design it. Give me your design. So, and then he called it Kiki, named after my sister, who's Christina, but he always nicknamed her Kiki. Come here, Kiki. And so Kiki basses. And so I've recorded that bass as well on on an album specifically called I Make You Want to Move, which was my very first Latin Grammy nomination in 2015, a year before I met you. And I played some of that music, and I need to get back into it. But I love the big bass.
Check out more of your music because I've heard a lot of it, but there's obviously a lot more. What about pedals or effects, or are you in any of that stuff?
It's one of those where it's like, because I play other instruments, and then there's the whole other side where I'm producing albums and I'm, arranging and composing and on the keyboard and MIDI and also film. I have an Emmy Award for film composition, and I have one of my Grammy Awards is for Best Contemporary Classical Composition, if you can imagine that, right? So yeah, so I feel like, it's one of those like, man, if I start investing in it, I'm gonna nerd so much that my bank account is gonna be non-existent. So
what?
My bank account.
Oh, your bank.
How many more toys do I need, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very traditional in that regard. I love it. I mean, I see other bass players use it, and I always feel convicted that I'm not incorporating it in my shows. But it's just, I think because I am at the point where I'm stretched enough where I can actually manage. But if I stretch myself any further, that thing is gonna just like,
I know what you
take
mean.
me to a level to where I'm not gonna focus on anything else because I'm gonna nerd out. Because that's like candy, I mean, so
Yeah.
this is where I nerd out on the recordings. On the recordings, I will nerd out and I will get the pedals, but it honestly, they're software pedals, right? So they are mods. They're not like the physical pedals. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I have one more question for you, and I my signature sign-off question is, what would you be if you weren't a bass player? But you're also a flute player. So what would you be if you weren't, in music? If you weren't a bass player, something outside of music.
Yeah. No, it's a great question.
You can't say a drummer. Some people have said that.
Let's see.
Ed Friedman said that.
Let me think about this.
Someone who's as deep a thinker as you must have a lot of outside interests.
But the thing about being an entrepreneur, and that's what I teach, it's a title that's also an excuse to be able to just explore all your interests in one. I'm going to answer it in a way that it's exactly what I'm trying to practice, and it's a very different approach. So what I would want to be, and it's what I'm actually trying to be. I'm trying to be a better dad, better father. I think that's the best way to put it, because I have a son that I absolutely love, and he's neurodivergent. He's 6 years old and he's on the spectrum, and there's new things that are developing, but it is an amazing time in my life because I'll never forget my PhD professor, Dr. Fung. He told me, he said, having options is a luxury. And I find myself having a lot of opportunity, a lot of luxury. But part of that oftentimes is the most important opportunity, and we put aside, is to spend more time with family, or especially in the role of father. And if you notice, so much of what I discussed is gratitude to the people who have fathered me in an uncle capacity, mentor, teacher, or even my father, my direct father. And so I need to be, and I want to be, and I will be. And my wife will say, you're too hard on yourself. You're doing great. You're awesome. You're the best dad. But it's like, no. There's a level of a father that I want to be. And so what I'm doing right now is adjusting my schedule this is full transparency, by the way. And I want people to know that because, you know, they can see the bio, they can see all this amazing stuff that's related more to the career. But like, hey, at the end of the day, it's all about family, right? And so, you know, so for me, I want to, and by the way, it's not just a calling and it's not just a love to be a father, but it's also a career. It's also another occupation that we need to recognize. This is work. Let's try to be the best at it, right? So I'm going to say father, to be
You
a
know,
better father.
our kids are going to learn from us no matter what we say. Doesn't matter. Not that it doesn't matter, but not as much as seeing what we do. And my son is a very accomplished guitar player. He played on Dua Lipa's record last.
Oh, wow. I love
Yeah.
Dua Lipa. Yeah.
So he also happens to be a very good bass player. He's not like when a guitar player picks up a bass, they sound like a guitar player playing the bass. He sounds like a bass player when he plays the bass. But this was years ago. He was young. He picked up one of my basses and started slapping, and he was sounding real funky. And I went, "Where'd you learn to do that?" And he said, "From watching you." And I can't tell you how that took the wind out of my sails in more ways than you can imagine. It
Yeah.
just absolutely blew me away. It's like, wow, what else am I doing that you're watching it?
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that right there is an incredible testimony. So that's the next thing for me, you know. You know,
To
since you
say, I want to, yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, since you mentioned bar mitzvah and I mentioned that I have Sephardic Jew
I
heritage.
said basements. I said
Oh, base
basements.
mitzvah, base mitzvah. Yeah, you know the I've been studying you know the Hebrew alphabet, and you know you have the first letter Aleph, second letter Bet. That's where we get also alphabet, and you know
Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav. Yes.
exactly. So you know Aleph is the ox, but it's associated also with strong man, and you know in the religious perspective, it's also connotated with the father, and the Bet is really beautiful too because it's like an empty house, you know, and I just thought it some scholars say that that letter is associated with the son. You know, like the father's for the son, the son's for the father, because the name father in Jew in Hebrew is Abba, and it's A-B-A. So it's like the father's for the son is for the father. And I just thought that was really beautiful in the spirit of what we were talking about, you know, because
Thank you.
I'm chasing my son, but my son has been chasing me. And so in what the testimony with your son, I think it's just really beautiful. So thank you. And you've been a father for so many people in this bass community. And also now I know
Wasn't sure where you were going with that.
yeah. Can I have can I have what do you call it, an allowance now?
No, I got to tell you, I want to meet you in person. I want to hang out with you. I want
Yeah.
to go to some clubs and hear different kinds of music. I want to sit with you and have you expose me to different kinds of music that I'm not familiar with.
Cool.
And I'm happy
Yeah.
to return the favor.
Oh,
My
thank you.
daughter went to school in Montana, and I drove her all the way back to Michigan from Montana. So I'm turning her on to my music. She's turning me on to her music, and it was a nice exchange. But I think some of the stuff that you described here, I can't even imagine. So let's figure it out. Let's make a
All
point
right.
of doing that.
Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you for you know, allowing me to share and to learn from you in this platform. And we'll definitely connect for sure. Let's make it happen.
Sounds good. Yes. Any excuse to get down to Miami. Not that it would be an excuse, but you know, like I mentioned earlier, it was 25 degrees earlier when I went for my walk, but I think with the wind chill, it was 8. So I bundled up. Anyway, thank you so much. A
Hey,
pleasure,
thank
an
you.
honor, an education, an inspiration, all good things. Thank you so much. I'm happy to know you and like to think of you as mi amigo.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Shalom.
Hasta la próxima.
All right. Nos vemos. Take care.
Thanks very much, Jose.
All right.
I'll be in
Bye.
touch. I told you he was a fascinating man with a lot of energy. What an awesome interview. So many takeaways. I could have kept going all day. In fact, it started to feel like I was, maybe to you. I'm John Liebman, founder and first baseman of ForBassPlayersOnly.com. If you've ever wanted to learn bass, you should know that right now there are thousands of people inside the For Bass Players Only community. A lot of them in their 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s. And you know what they're doing? They're learning bass. They're having the time of their life playing music that they love. You should come join them and experience that incredible transformation for yourself. You're never too old to groove. So let's play bass. I will see you back here next week, same time, same place, with another awesome bass player interview. In the meantime, I'm John Liebman. Let's play bass.